Imagine living each day with a mind serene and unshaken by the turbulence of stress, anger, or fear. Imagine a state of being where you are the master of your emotions, not because life has become easy, but because you have trained your mind to remain steadfast, no matter what comes its way. Consider this. How many times has a single thoughtless comment unraveled your entire day? How often have you snapped, wept, withdrawn, or burned a bridge because you could not pause for even 5 seconds? We tell ourselves we are in control, but the truth is, most of us are captives of our own emotions, pulled to and fro by every insult, every delay, every disappointment. It is not the world that tears you apart. It is the narrative your own mind weaves in response to it. This is the profound insight of the Stoics. Freedom does not come from changing the world, but from mastering the one thing you truly command, yourself. If you are weary of reacting without thought, of drowning in emotions that leave you empty and exhausted, then journey with me. What you are about to learn will challenge everything you have assumed about strength, peace, and power. If this is the kind of fortitude you seek, then commit not to a fleeting fix, but to a path of steady growth. For here we do not chase comfort. We pursue wisdom, resilience, and a profound inner peace. And with every lesson, you move one step closer to the person you were meant to become. 1. Audit the source of your emotions. Have you ever found yourself walking away from a conversation, only to have it replay endlessly in your mind? You dissect what they said, how they said it, the hidden meaning you believe lurked beneath their words. Your heart begins to race, your jaw tightens, a knot forms in your stomach, and suddenly you are caught in an emotional spiral, long after the moment itself has passed. It is a strange phenomenon, is it not? How something so small, a glance, a sentence, a silence, can swell into a raging storm within the mind. But here lies a truth rarely taught. That storm was not born of them. It was born of you, from your thoughts, from the meaning you assigned to the event. This is not a flaw. It is the nature of being human. But it is something you have the power to change. The Stoics were among the first to illuminate this with piercing clarity. The philosopher Epictetus said it best. We are not disturbed by events, but by our opinions about them. This is not a riddle. It is a mirror. What upsets us is never the thing itself, but our interpretation of it. You are not angry because someone ignored you. You are angry because you chose to believe it meant you were not worthy of their time. You are not anxious because your boss sent a vague email. You are anxious because your mind produced a catastrophic film about being fired, judged, or rejected. The trigger is external, but the detonation is internal. This is why Stoicism begins with awareness. It teaches you to look beneath the surface of your emotions, not to suppress them, but to understand their origins. If you never pause to ask, why do I truly feel this way? You will spend your life reacting to ghosts. Ghosts of your past, ghosts of your fears, ghosts of assumptions that no longer hold any truth. So let us slow down. The next time life delivers an emotional blow, before you spiral into despair or erupt in anger, pause. Ask yourself, what belief is fueling this reaction? What narrative am I accepting as truth? Is it something I have ever questioned, or is it simply running on autopilot? As Carl Jung observed, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The weight of that observation is profound, for most of us are unaware of how deeply our emotional lives are shaped by unconscious beliefs. Stories absorbed in childhood, fears left unhealed, conclusions drawn when we were too young to understand. Perhaps your anger today is not about the present moment, but a defense mechanism built years ago to shield you from humiliation. Perhaps your anxiety is not about an email, but a deep-seated need for control, born from a time when your life felt utterly out of control. When you stop treating every emotion as gospel and instead cultivate a curiosity about its roots, something powerful happens. You begin to unhook. The emotion no longer owns you. You begin to own it. This is where true freedom resides, not in trying to make the world less stressful, but in training yourself to stop interpreting everything as a threat. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." He was not suggesting we pretend that misfortunes do not occur. He was reminding us that our ultimate power lies in how we choose to interpret them. Once you grasp this, you cease playing defense against life. You are no longer a puppet pulled by emotional strings. You begin to step into your own authority. Consider your emotions as alarm systems. They signal when something feels wrong. But like any alarm, they can be faulty. Sometimes the danger is real, and sometimes they are merely glitching. If you never investigate the source of the alarm, you will spend your life chasing phantom fires, an exhausting path that leads only to burnout. The wiser way is to listen to the alarm, but then, to check the wiring, ask, is this emotion born of the present, or is it an echo from somewhere deeper? This is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of insight. Seneca once remarked, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And he was right. Your imagination is a powerful force. Left undirected, it will use you, tricking you into feeling danger where there is none. But when you learn to distinguish what is real from what is imagined, your mind transforms from a place of panic into a place of power. Mastering your emotions does not mean you no longer feel them. It means you are no longer dominated by them. It means learning to sit with discomfort without letting it dictate your actions. It means understanding that your reaction is always a choice, even when it doesn't feel like one. And in that space between stimulus and response, you will find your freedom. 2. Train your mind with mental rehearsal. Have you ever observed how seldom life unfolds precisely as planned? You resolve to have a productive day, only to find your phone never charged. You enter a conversation expecting connection, but are met with sarcasm or silence. You are soaring on good news, only to receive a call that knocks the wind from your sails. This is the universal human experience. The truth is that chaos asks for no permission. It simply arrives. Most people are constantly caught off guard, emotionally wrecked by the unexpected, not because the world is uniquely cruel to them, but because they have never trained for the moments that test them. They assumed life would be gentle. The Stoics never made this assumption. They expected adversity, not with pessimism, but with clear-eyed realism. They knew that peace does not come from pretending hardship will not find you. Peace comes from being mentally prepared when it does. This is the essence of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. Do not let the dramatic phrasing mislead you. This is not an invitation to negativity. It is a call to preparation. It is the art of forging an inner strength that does not shatter at the first sign of trouble. Think of it as a gymnasium for the mind. When you lift weights, you are training your body to handle resistance, so that when life demands you carry something heavy, you are not shocked by the burden. This is what premeditatio malorum is for your mind, a form of emotional weightlifting, a rehearsal for the storm, so that when it hits, you do not panic. You breathe, you do not crumble, you endure. In practice, the method is simple. Before your day begins, in a moment of quiet, you mentally walk through what might go wrong. This is not an exercise in catastrophizing, but in cultivating calm. Picture someone offering an insult. Imagine a carefully laid plan falling apart. Envision a delay that ruins your schedule. Then, ask yourself, how will I respond if this happens? Visualize yourself remaining composed, breathing slowly, choosing clarity over chaos. The purpose is not to live in fear, but to meet life with resilience. As Marcus Aurelius noted, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. We live in a culture obsessed with control, yet the Stoics understood that most of life is uncontrollable. You cannot control another person's behavior, the fluctuations of the market, or the speed of traffic. But you can always control your response. You can control your readiness to meet discomfort when it arrives. That readiness changes everything. When you expect the unexpected, you are no longer rattled by it. You respond rather than react. As Carl Jung said, the world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you. When chaos strikes a mind untrained, emotion decides who you are. You default to panic, anger, or victimhood. But when you have practiced imagining difficulty, you do not collapse into the noise. You rise above it. You remember who you are. This is the power of the exercise. It teaches you to respond from character, not from impulse. This does not require an hour of your day. All it asks is for 3 minutes and the focus of your mind. Tomorrow morning, before the world hijacks your attention, take a breath and ask, what might challenge my peace today? Then, tell yourself, if that happens, I will remain calm. I will respond with reason. I will not let it steal my serenity. As Seneca wrote, he robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. This is the very heart of the practice, to remove the sting from the unexpected by expecting it. A firefighter does not hope for a fire, but they train as if one is inevitable. This is what premeditatio malorum does for your emotional life. It makes you mentally agile and emotionally fortified, calm not because life is perfect, but because you have rehearsed your peace. And this practice does not make you cold or cynical. On the contrary, it opens the door to a deeper gratitude. When you contemplate loss, you appreciate what you have. When you imagine the day going awry and it does not, you find more reason to smile. You stop taking the ordinary for granted. The Stoics taught us to awaken to life by facing its impermanence. This is more than mental training. It is soul work. It reminds you that everything is temporary, and in that acceptance, you are liberated from the fear of loss. You begin to live more fully, more freely, more intentionally. 3. Name the emotion to tame it. Consider the moment your heart begins to pound, your chest tightens, and your mind starts to race. Perhaps someone has disrespected you, or your plans have disintegrated, or a wave of anxiety has appeared from nowhere. Whatever the cause, your first instinct is likely one of action, to lash out, to withdraw, to distract yourself. But what if the most powerful response was to do nothing at all? What if, instead of reacting, you simply named the feeling as it arose? This is anger. This is fear. This is shame. It may sound deceptively simple, but this is not a trivial exercise. It is a profound psychological and philosophical practice. The moment you name an emotion, you create distance. You are no longer inside the storm. You are observing it. And from that vantage point, you reclaim your power. The Stoics, without the benefit of neuroscience, understood this fundamental truth. They saw emotions as judgments, mental interpretations wrapped in physical sensations. When you say, "This is anger," you are not denying the feeling. You are acknowledging it, bringing it from the shadows into the light, where it begins to lose its grip. Emotions thrive in the chaos of the unnamed. They grow louder when ignored. But when you give them a name, you diminish their power. Modern psychology affirms this wisdom. Dr. Dan Siegel famously coined the phrase, "Name it to tame it." Labeling an emotion activates the rational part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, while reducing activity in the amygdala, the center of your fight or flight response. In simple terms, naming a feeling helps you to stop being the feeling. You think you are simply having a bad day, but perhaps you are avoiding the truth that you feel hurt, insecure, or grief-stricken. If you cannot name it, you cannot work with it. How, then, does one practice this? It begins with awareness. The next time your stomach drops or your shoulders tense, pause. Do not act. Do not reach for your phone or retreat into distraction. Simply pause, breathe, and give the feeling its name. Say it to yourself, quietly and without judgment. You are not wrong for feeling it. You are human. Think of emotions as messengers. Anger may be pointing to a crossed boundary. Fear may be highlighting your vulnerability. Shame may be asking you to examine whether you are living in alignment with your values. If you do not name the emotion, you miss the message. It becomes mere static, driving your behavior without your consent. This is especially critical in our relationships. How many arguments, how many cold silences have been born not of truth, but of unspoken emotions taking the wheel? Imagine how your conversations might transform if, instead of projecting insecurity as blame or sarcasm, you could simply state, "I am feeling insecure." Imagine saying, "I am feeling overwhelmed," instead of exploding in frustration. Such honesty does not make you weak. It makes you powerful. It makes you real. Naming your emotions may feel awkward at first, only because most of us were taught to power through our feelings, to suppress them. But true strength begins with truth, and truth begins with awareness. If you cannot articulate what you are feeling, you cannot hope to understand your own reactions, let alone begin to change them. In his private journal, which we now know as Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This is more than ancient wisdom. It is a challenge, a call to embrace responsibility, beginning with the simple act of naming your inner world. Make this a habit. Weave it into the fabric of your day. When you wake up feeling a shadow over you, before labeling the day as bad, pause and ask yourself what emotion is truly present. When you feel that tightness in your chest during a conversation, check in. What is this really? And when the urge to react rises, especially when it is fierce and immediate, take that as your cue. Stop, name it, observe it, then, and only then, decide. Because a beautiful shift occurs in that moment. The instant you give a name to an emotion, you are no longer driven by it. Instead, you stand beside it. You become the observer, not the reactor. And that shift is freedom. That is where self-control truly begins, not in suppressing your feelings, but in understanding them. Of course, this does not mean you will always get it right. There will be times you misname the emotion, times you still react too quickly. That is part of the process. This isn't about perfection. It is about intention. It is about moving from autopilot to awareness. Every time you do that, even just once, you take a step toward becoming the kind of person who owns their emotions instead of being owned by them. Remember, you don't have to fix the feeling. You don't have to explain it away or justify it. You just have to name it. Let that be enough for now. Let that be the beginning, for in the act of naming it, you begin to tame it. And once it is tamed, you can transform it, not as a weapon against yourself, but as wisdom to light your path. 4. Choose discomfort on purpose. Let us speak of a truth most of us would rather avoid, a reality we sense deep down but refuse to confront. We have grown soft, not in character or morality, but mentally and emotionally. We inhabit a world designed for ease, for speed, for convenience. Food delivered in minutes, comfort on demand, entertainment streaming endlessly, a warm bed, a hot shower, a phone brimming with distractions. And it feels good, undeniably. But this comfort comes at a price no one speaks of. It makes us fragile. The less discomfort we face, the less we are able to handle it. We stop growing. We stop strengthening. We become emotionally dependent on ease. And when life inevitably ceases to be easy, we crumble. The Stoics saw this danger over 2,000 years ago, and they offered a solution: voluntary discomfort. It sounds harsh, doesn't it? Why would anyone choose to make life harder than it already is? The answer is simple. Because when you train your mind to handle discomfort on your terms, you become infinitely more capable of handling it when it is not your choice. That is strength. That is freedom. This practice is not about self-punishment. It is about shattering the illusion that you need constant comfort to be okay, because you don't. You have simply been conditioned to believe that you do. Most of us avoid discomfort at all costs. We become irritable if our coffee order is wrong. We feel adrift if our phone battery dies. We complain about things our ancestors would not even recognize as problems. But life will be uncomfortable. Plans will fall apart. People will disappoint us. Our bodies will fail. Tragedy will strike. And if you haven't trained your mind to face discomfort before that day comes, you will be utterly unprepared. This is why the Stoics practiced discomfort with intention. Cold showers, skipping meals, wearing rough clothing, sleeping on the floor. These were not acts of self-flagellation. They were acts of self-empowerment. Each one declared, "I am not ruled by my cravings. I am not a slave to ease. I can endure this and still be whole." This is how true toughness is forged, not the performative kind, full of noise and bravado, but a quiet, steady resilience. The kind that says, "I can sit with this feeling and not run away." Modern psychology supports this ancient wisdom. Carl Jung once observed, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And isn't that what we do with comfort? We scroll, we snack, we binge, we distract. Anything to avoid sitting with the raw, untamed parts of ourselves. But if you wish to grow, truly grow, you must learn to face discomfort, not flee from it. You must stop seeing it as an enemy and start seeing it as the gymnasium where your mind gets stronger. You don't have to start with something extreme. No need to sleep in the woods or fast for 3 days. You start small, for that is where real transformation begins. Choose one small, intentional discomfort each day. Forgo sugar for 24 hours. Take a cold shower. Put your phone away for an entire evening. Wake up an hour earlier than usual. Walk instead of drive. Speak up in a meeting where you would normally stay silent. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is why you are doing it. Not to punish yourself, not to prove anything to anyone else, but to prove to yourself that you are capable of choosing growth over comfort. Each time you do this, you rewire your brain. Your nervous system recalibrates. You expand your window of tolerance. The next time life gets tough, and it will, you won't be so easily thrown. You won't spiral at the first sign of trouble. You will have a bank of memories, moments when you faced discomfort and survived. Better yet, moments when you chose it and grew stronger. This is the mindset that sets people apart. It is not that some are born tougher or calmer. It is that they have trained for it. They have practiced. Marcus Aurelius did not lead a peaceful life. He faced war, betrayal, loss, and plague. Yet he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the entire point. Discomfort is not something to be avoided. It is something to be used. And when you live this way, something profound shifts within you. You stop needing life to be perfect to feel okay. You stop demanding that everything go your way. You stop breaking down when it doesn't. Instead, you meet life with calm, with clarity, with that quiet strength you have been building, one uncomfortable choice at a time. You also gain something else most people miss: deep gratitude. Because when you go without, even for a short time, you begin to appreciate the small comforts more intensely. A hot shower feels like a luxury. A simple meal feels sacred. A warm bed feels like a gift. Voluntary discomfort does not make you bitter. It makes you present. It makes you grateful for what is already here. And that gratitude is a form of emotional wealth that cannot be faked. So ask yourself, what is one small discomfort you can choose today? Not to prove how tough you are, but to train, to build inner strength, to remind yourself that comfort is a luxury, not a requirement. To know that you can be okay even when things are not easy. Because Stoicism teaches, at its core, that your peace does not come from how comfortable your life is. It comes from how resilient your mind is. From your willingness to sit in the fire, breathe through it, and emerge stronger on the other side. Choose the cold shower. Skip the dessert. Say no to the habit that numbs you. Sit with the awkward feeling instead of hiding from it. Do it not to suffer, but to grow. Because one day life will hand you a hardship you did not choose. And on that day, you will be ready. Not because it will be easy, but because you will be stronger than your need for easy. 5. Zoom out for perspective. Have you ever been trapped in a moment so completely that your entire world shrinks to the size of a single offense? A missed message? A harsh glance? 1 minute, you are at your desk, feeling unstoppable. The next, a sharp word from your boss makes everything crumble. A text goes unread, and you replay it in your mind 100 times. We take something small and magnify it within ourselves, giving it a power it does not deserve. Often, the problem isn't the problem itself. It is our perspective. We are simply too close. Stoicism offers a powerful remedy for this, an exercise they called the view from above. Imagine it now. You mentally step back from the chaos. You rise out of your body, out of the room, out of your city. You drift upward until you are floating in the silent expanse of space. Down below, the earth is a fragile, glowing marble suspended in the void. And somewhere on that marble, you are just one dot among billions. Now, as you observe yourself as that tiny dot, ask, will this moment define my week? Will it matter a year from now? When I am old, rich with wrinkles and memories, will this drama still hold me hostage? The answer, almost certainly, is no. It is not that these events are meaningless, but that we have lost perspective. We have forgotten the sheer vastness of our world and our lives, and when we return to the thick of it, we carry that perspective with us like emotional armor. This technique, practiced by Marcus Aurelius himself, allowed him to refuse the tyranny of both small inconveniences and profound disappointments. It allowed him to see himself not as the victim of minute events, but as a traveler moving through the vastness of existence. This mental habit may sound mystical, but it is simple. Think of it as resizing your emotional lens. Most of us suffer not because life is out of control, but because we are standing too close to the noise. When you take a macro photograph, everything close up is sharp, but the background is a blur. Step back just a little, and suddenly the whole scene comes into focus. That is how the view from above works on your emotions. It shifts your focus from the high-definition drama of the moment to the full-spectrum clarity of existence. You still feel the sting. You still see the hurt. But you do not drown in it. You witness it. You locate it on the vast map of your life, and you decide whether to engage or release it. The Stoics taught this because they were not detached philosophers. They were leaders, survivors, human beings. They knew that mistakes happen, plans derail, and people let you down. Yet, with the view from above, you do not collapse into self-pity. You say, "All right, that happened, but it is not all that has happened, and not all is lost." When you experience a breakup, instead of spiraling into despair, you remember your life as a vast and varied landscape. When you lose a job, you recognize it as just one chapter in an entire saga. That is the freedom this perspective grants. It does not make you uncaring. It makes you emotionally powerful. As Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." Part of awakening is zooming out to see that the emotion tugging at you is not the whole story. Not even close. You are not your anxiety. You are not your shame. You are the observer holding them, floating outside of them. That shift unlocks choice. Once you realize you are more than your worst moment, you begin to act like it. The weight might still be there, but you are no longer crushed by it. Let me be clear. Using the view from above does not mean avoiding responsibility or ignoring pain. True Stoicism is not coldness. It is warmth, grounded in sight, courage, rooted in perspective. It is the ability to care without collapsing. You can feel sadness without losing your direction. You can feel frustration without burning bridges. You can walk through hell and still remember the stars are watching. There is a twist, however. The view from above does not only help with negative moments, it also amplifies your gratitude. When you zoom out and see yourself on that spinning marble in the cosmos, you realize how much is working in your favor. A roof over your head, friends who care, food to eat, the sun on your face, a beating heart. Perspective brightens what is good, anchors what is bad, and reminds you that most of life is simply neutral. You are just zoomed in on the rare, flickering moments of intensity. This practice helps you breathe. It helps you choose. It helps you live more fully. You don't lose yourself in regret. You don't break under stress because you carry the knowledge that your life is bigger than this. You are resilient not because bad things stopped happening, but because your awareness grew larger than the bad things. So here is what you do. You don't need a crisis or a guru. You just need 3 minutes. The next time you feel that small, panicked voice taking over, "This is everything. I can't handle this." Pause. In your mind, look up. Rise into the sky. Watch your town, your life, your problems shrink into tiny specks against the backdrop of the infinite. And then ask, will this matter when I am old? When I am wise? When I am grateful just for having survived? Try it today. Feel the shift. Feel how your chest softens, how your mind grows quiet enough to notice what truly matters. See how you reclaim your agency. If life is truly unpredictable, and it is, then you might as well build a mental filter that turns noise into context, that gives you space to breathe, space to choose, space to become who you truly are. Because you are not just a character in a small story of personal drama. You are a soul riding a marble through the cosmos. That is perspective. That is freedom. That is Stoicism in practice. The next time the world tries to shrink you, zoom out. 6. Ask if the emotion is useful. There comes a moment, perhaps in a tense conversation or in the silent darkness at 2 a.m, when your mind feels hijacked by emotion. Your heart races, your thoughts loop, and you feel stuck, powerless, and out of control. Most of the time, however, the emotion itself is not what destroys your peace. It is your refusal to question it. In that exact moment, there is a life-altering question you can learn to ask. Is this emotion helping me right now? It sounds simple, almost too simple. But simplicity is a powerful antidote when our minds are overrun by the complexity of worry, fear, or anger. If you can learn to ask this question in the smallest moments of crisis, you begin to reclaim your power. Because when you realize an emotion is merely burning energy instead of creating solutions, you can choose to let it go. Let's break it down. You feel anger. Why? Because someone said or did something that triggered a story in your head. They disrespected me. They're trying to undermine me. Or, they should have known better. But ask the question, is this anger helping me solve the problem, or is it just draining me? If the answer is that it's not helping, you have already made progress simply by noticing. You have created a gap between the emotion and your decision. In that gap, freedom is found. In that gap, you can choose to say, "All right, anger. Thank you for the alert, but I've got this." And then, you can let it go. That is emotional mastery, not suppression. But you cannot release what you do not first recognize as mere noise. Sometimes we hold on to emotions because they feel justified. Anger, fear, shame, they all have compelling stories to tell, but they do not get to decide your actions. You do. Stoicism reminds us that you are not your feelings. You are the one who chooses. Marcus Aurelius understood that sensations happen quickly, almost without warning. He encouraged the mental discipline to slow them down, to say, "I feel this," and then to ask, "Does this serve me?" That question is a filter for peace. Anxiety may arise to prioritize safety over opportunity, but when you question it, you might decide that while its caution is noted, it will not be your guide. Fear may rise to protect you, but when you question it, you may find that it is stopping you from taking a chance you truly desire. Fear loses its power when you put it under the spotlight. It becomes a reflection, not a dictator. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." By questioning your fear, you make its darkness conscious. It ceases to be a black hole and reveals its structure, its origin, its purpose. Now, consider shame. Shame is treacherous. It creeps in silently, whispering that you are not enough, that you have failed irrevocably, that everyone will find out. But ask, is this shame helping me fix something, or is it just burying me deeper? If shame is not helping, then the only healthy response is to thank it for its input and let it go. Shame is not a critical friend. It is a bully with good intentions. Stoicism teaches that true correction comes from insight, not from self-ridicule. It is about alignment, not annihilation. If an emotion does not point you toward virtue, peace, or clarity, you do not have to feed it. Not everything you feel deserves your energy. Some emotions are merely static in the mind, distracting, dissonant, and ultimately useless. But because we fail to question them, they linger, they loop, they multiply, clouding our days with unnecessary weight. Your inner peace is worth more than your pride. That is a truth most of us struggle to admit. Pride wants us to react, to prove a point. But when you pause and ask the question, you often see that pride simply wants to save face. It does not want harmony. It wants to win. And while some battles are worth fighting, a victory at someone else's expense often erodes your own inner quiet. The Stoics were not indifferent. They simply refused to let pride throw them off balance. They asked, is this reaction bringing me closer to wisdom or further away? If it was the latter, they let it go. Think of it this way. Life presents challenges to all of us. The quality of our experience, however, is determined not by what happens, but by how we allow those events to move us internally. Are they shaping us into calmer, stronger, more compassionate beings? Or are they chipping away at our center, one interaction at a time? Emotions can be our greatest teachers, but only if we treat them as lessons, not life sentences. Pain is real. Grief is real. But their utility is a choice. Anxiety is a potent force, undeniably real. Yet, these feelings need not become permanent tenants in the home of your mind. You are the gatekeeper, armed with a single, clarifying question. Is this emotion serving me right now? If the answer is no, you gently close the door. You do not let that feeling ruin your day, steal your choices, or dictate your attitude. Because not all feelings deserve your attention, and certainly not all deserve a seat at the table where your decisions are made. Now let us be honest. Implementing this takes practice. The old impulse to scream back, to fire off an angry text, or to spiral into worry will still be there. That is only human. The first time you ask this question, you will feel the resistance. The second time, it will still feel foreign. But the third time, you will taste a flicker of freedom. Because each time you choose peace over reaction, you are rewiring your brain, guiding it away from chaos and toward calm. This is real growth, and growth rarely feels comfortable in the moment. A beautiful irony that reinforces the entire point. Discomfort, you see, can be a teacher if you allow it. This is not a call to become emotionless. Not at all. Emotions are an integral part of the human experience. But we, as human beings, should not be mastered by them. We should seek to master them. Stoicism offers a toolbox for this very purpose, and the first, most powerful tool is this question. Do not let your heart run the show until you have checked in with your head. Let peace be your landlord, not pride, not shame, not runaway tension, because, at the end of the day, your mind is your home. You decide who lives there. So the next time you feel that familiar heat rising, just pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this emotion helping me right now? If the answer is yes, then lean in. Let it guide you. It may be necessary. But if the answer is no, do yourself the profound favor of letting it go. You will feel the power shift. You will feel the space open up. And you will discover that sometimes all it takes to protect your peace is one simple question. 7. Control what you can. Release what you cannot. Have you ever stood before an overwhelming challenge, feeling the only solution was to walk away, to raise your hands and say, "It is what it is," hoping the storm might pass on its own? Many confuse this with Stoicism, imagining it as a shrug and a half-hearted whatever. But that is not Stoicism. That is mental surrender, and surrender does not forge strength. It only cultivates regret. True Stoicism is the opposite. It is about taking powerful, intelligent action. It is about directing your energy precisely where it matters, to the places where you have actual influence. You may not control the weather, but you can always adjust your sails. You cannot control another person's thoughts, but you can master your own response. The Stoics, like Epictetus, taught this through the dichotomy of control. He said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Anything outside your control, the opinions of others, the past, the turn of a season, is baggage you need not carry. But your judgments, your efforts, your intentions, those are yours to command, and that is where Stoicism challenges you to rise. Imagine yourself an archer. You can train your arm, select the perfect arrow, steady your breath, and fix your gaze upon the target. Then you release. Whether the shot lands or not, what mattered was your aim, your focus, your effort. You release the outcome. That is the Stoic way. It is how you remain active, engaged, and sane, even when the world refuses to offer perfect conditions. This is not passivity. It is clarity. It is investing your energy wisely, separating what you can influence from what you cannot, and then moving with purpose. In your work, you can control how diligently you prepare, how clearly you communicate, how open you are to learning. You cannot control your boss's mood or the company's future, so you focus on your part with excellence and let go of the rest. This is not weakness, it is emotional maturity. It is not giving up. It is choosing your battles and bringing your best self to them. When someone criticizes you online, you cannot control their words. But you can control your interpretation. You can choose whether to let it define your day or to filter it through your own purpose. This is not Stoic resignation, it is empowerment. When you focus on what is within your control, you transform defeated energy into creative energy. You build confidence. You shape your character. You move forward, step by step, even when the path is uncertain. Think of a raging wildfire. You would not waste your time yelling at the flames. You would direct your efforts to what you can do. Evacuate, build a fire break, call for help. This is what Stoicism asks of you in life. Work where you can, act where you must, and let go where you cannot. Your job is to play your part with reason, effort, and integrity. The outcome is not your burden to bear. This mindset releases you from emotional whiplash, from the futile fight to control others. Letting go does not mean you do not care. It means you refuse to be dragged into battles you cannot win. You choose what matters and walk away from what does not. This is precision over panic, discipline over disappointment. In the end, life will always present problems. But your life is not defined by those problems. It is defined by how you choose to respond. Stoicism does not say, don't care. It says, care wisely. Care where you can help. Care by doing your part. And for everything else, release it. You deserve a life powered by action, not by suffering. You deserve to be the archer, to aim, to shoot, and to watch your arrow fly. That is strength. That is sanity. That is Stoicism. 8. Live in harmony with your nature. Recall those moments of profound dissonance, that unsettling feeling that you are living someone else's life. Perhaps you are chasing a promotion you do not truly want, or pretending to be someone you are not, just to fit in. There is a tightness in your chest. You are exhausted from measuring yourself against standards that were never yours to begin with. Here is a truth the Stoics mastered centuries ago. You are lost when you are out of alignment with who you truly are. They called this state oikiosis, a Greek word meaning to live in harmony with your true nature. Not chasing illusions, not acting on impulse, but leaning into what you were built for: rational thinking, calm presence, courage, and justice. We were not made to be reactive or small-minded. We were made to be thinkers, doers, people grounded in principle, not panic. When you lose that grounding, the emotional storms gather. That tightness you feel? It is your higher self whispering, "Come back home." But most of us drown out that voice, chasing validation, wealth, and dominance, while our soul quietly shrivels. We forget that the true goal of life is not accumulation, but alignment. It is choosing virtue over vanity, purpose over popularity. Behind all the noise of modern life, there is a quiet invitation to step into your own self. This invitation may feel uncomfortable. It asks you to drop the act, to stop wearing masks, to admit that external success does not equal internal fulfillment. Oikiosis is a journey of self-return, back to your rational mind, your strong heart, and your clear purpose. When was the last time you asked, "Am I acting from my higher nature or reacting from impulse?" When anger flares in traffic, are you responding from rational boundaries or emotional chaos? That single question begins the shift. Stoicism teaches that knowing your nature is not enough. You must act in accordance with it. Rationality means thinking clearly, not letting emotion hijack your decisions. Calm means breathing through the chaos, not joining it. Justice means treating others with fairness, even when they do not. Courage means standing for what matters, even if you stand alone. These are not lofty ideals, they are daily choices. Each time you choose courage over comfort, calm over chaos, you are realigning. You are bringing yourself home. When life feels chaotic, it is often because we are tuned out, running on someone else's frequency, trying to fill a void with noise. Oikeiosis is the reset. Here is how you practice it. When you feel overwhelmed, pause. Ask yourself, am I acting from my higher nature or my lower impulse? If it is the latter, do not judge yourself. Simply pivot. Do something small that reminds you who you are. Speak calmly instead of snapping. Choose kindness over indifference. Each small choice is a return, and every return builds a powerful integrity you cannot fake. The Stoics saw this alignment as natural, not like climbing a mountain, but like finding your keys in your own house. You had them all along. Consider the Stoic image of a tree with deep roots. Storms blow, branches sway, but the roots hold firm. Oikeiosis is nurturing those roots. Rationality, virtue, purpose, courage. When those roots are alive, you may bend, but you will not break. You will feel stress and heartbreak, but you will not feel lost. Aligning with your higher nature also breaks the consumerist trance. You begin to care less about likes and more about substance, less about flashy pleasure and more about quiet dignity. You realize you were not made to collect trophies, but to make contributions. What if your value came not from your follower count, but from your calm in a crisis? Your courage in speaking truth. That is oikeiosis in action. It is not about perfection, but integrity. You feel the rage, the sorrow, the longing, but you know who you choose to be. Your life becomes more intentional, more free. You stand tall, not because the world gave you a pedestal, but because you built your foundation from the inside out. So, ask yourself daily, am I living in alignment with who I am meant to be? And when the answer is no, feel not shame, but curiosity. Then pivot. That subtle return to center is the foundation for everything else that matters. As Seneca said, true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. But you cannot truly enjoy the present if you are living out of tune. Oikeiosis helps you own your now, because that peace, once found, is unshakable. It follows you, not because life gets kinder, but because you carry calm inside. 9. Pause before you react. Have you ever felt the sting of regret, the burning echo of words spoken in the heat of a moment? A tense email fired off at work, a sharp comment tossed at someone who did not deserve it. In those moments, your heart races, your hands clench, and words fly out like ammunition. Then, when the adrenaline fades, you are left with the emotional debris and a hollow feeling in your stomach. We have all been there, because our first reaction often hijacks our better self. But here is a simple truth. Your second response, the one born in the quiet space of a pause, is where your wisdom resides. When you are triggered, do not respond immediately. Instead, give yourself a mental cue. Pause. Let me think. A mere 10 seconds can be the difference. A single, deliberate breath is all it takes for logic to arrive, for clarity to return. Then, you can decide. Will these words build or burn? Will they heal or hurt? Those few seconds are the crossroads between chaos and clarity, between reaction and reason. When you allow logic to catch up to the emotional hijack, your power returns. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus, who lived through tyranny and famine, taught that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Your initial emotional explosion is not the real problem. It is the impulse to identify with it completely. If you pause, you create an invisible space to ask, is this truly important? Is this aligned with who I want to be? That tiny gap reintroduces choice. It is where you decide if being kind matters more than being right. That first slash of anger is unconscious. The pause, the breath, the step back, is where consciousness re-enters the stage. By cultivating this space, you are no longer a puppet of your first impulse. You are training yourself to be thoughtful, clear, and intentional. The beauty of this practice is how it rewrites your story. Imagine a partner makes an offhand remark that strikes a nerve. The instinct is to snap back. But if you pause, perhaps take a breath or a sip of water, you create space to choose. Will I retaliate, or will I reflect and respond with care? That moment of restraint protects your relationship. It saves you from regrets that can echo for days. It carves a path toward wisdom. Your second response can always be your best one. In our modern world, this habit is a rare and precious form of power. We are wired for speed, for instant reactions, viral responses, for trolling at the click of a finger. But wisdom is never fast. Wisdom waits. It questions. It is deliberate. The Stoics knew what modern thinkers have affirmed. Speed is brilliant for our reflexes, but poison for our relationships. In the space between impulse and action, there is a pause. And that pause builds a kind of emotional muscle, a quietly revolutionary skill. It allows you to remain calm while others are losing their composure. It gives your words weight and meaning. It makes your integrity visible to all. To live without those 10 seconds is to live on autopilot, pulled along by every insult, every text, every tweet, until your entire day is spent running from one reaction to another. You are not just stressed. You are fragmented, scattered. But with those seconds, you become whole again. You reconnect with your inner compass. You remember who you are and who you want to be, because that pause, it is your connection to choice. Let me frame it differently. Imagine your mind as a calm lake. Emotions are like stones tossed into its waters. Without a pause, you become the splash, the disruption, the stone itself. But when you pause, you become the observer standing at the edge of the water. You are not the splash. You are watching it. You see its shape ripple and fade, and then you move on. This is not coldness. It is clarity. It is emotional presence. It is the Stoic ideal. You are not being weak when you pause. You are being strong, strong enough to slow down when the world demands you speed up. This is how you build emotional intelligence. This is how you step out of drama and into dignity. And yes, people notice. They feel the difference in your calm. They grow to trust your words. They learn from your grace under tension. That is quiet leadership. This habit doesn't just change conversations. It changes you. It rewires your very sense of self-control. Instead of reacting with shame or fear or rage, you begin responding with insight, with calm, with compassion. This isn't about perfection. It's about evolution. Each time you pause, you are reinforcing a new way of being. Own your decisions. Own your values. Own your calm. Of course, life will never stop testing you. People will irritate you. Situations will trigger you. but your power lies in keeping that tiny space intact. It is the gap that saves you again and again until it becomes a shield, a lens, a method of being. So do not aim for perfection. Aim to be present. Offer yourself those few seconds. Breathe deeply. Connect with what truly matters. And then let your words follow, because those 10 seconds are not just time. They are potential. The potential to protect, to understand, to rise. The potential to turn an instinctive reaction into a deliberate and perhaps even beautiful action. The pause is not a trick. It is a practice. It is a pillar. It is the voice within your mind saying, "Hold on, let us live like humans, not like circuits." Because your identity is not defined by your impulses, but by the responses you consciously choose. Have you ever noticed how life seems to hit hardest when you're least expecting it? You wake up confident, ready for the day, and then the morning traffic jerks you around. An email delivers a sharp rejection, or a project collapses in front of everyone. It feels unfair. It feels heavy. But here is something the Stoics taught. Life does not test you with setbacks. It trains you. Think of it this way. The traffic jam is your drill in patience. The rejection, a lesson in humility. The failure, a masterclass in discipline. That driver who cut you off is not there to ruin your day. He is the dojo bell, signaling that it is time to practice virtue once more. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." In other words, every obstacle contains an opportunity for power. Each disturbance is a tool you can use to sharpen your mind. It is like mental weightlifting. We do not avoid the gym because the weights are heavy. We show up, grip the bar, and flex through the resistance. The same applies to life's challenges. The Stoics did not wander through life hoping for perfection. They stepped into the chaos daily, asking, "What is this moment here to teach me?" When rejection stung, it was a reminder to cultivate humility. When they failed, it was a chance to build relentless discipline. They turned every setback into a purposeful practice. What if, the next time something pushes you down, you did not ask, "Why me?" but instead asked, "How can I grow through this?" A difficult client becomes your moment to practice courage. A disagreement, an opportunity for integrity. An overloaded schedule, a test of your endurance. The point is not to suffer. It is to transform suffering into strength. Virtue cannot be forged in a vacuum. It needs friction. It needs pressure. It needs the emotional spark that only struggle can provide. This is not about romanticizing pain. It is about choice. When a setback arrives, you choose whether to collapse under it or to lift with it. You choose to ask, "What am I practicing right now?" That single shift, from seeing it as a curse to seeing it as a lesson, changes everything. The worst day of your life becomes a training ground, not a trauma. You build resilience, layer by layer. Imagine your boss publicly criticizes your work in a meeting. Heat floods your body. Your heart pounds. Your first instinct is to fight back or shut down. But you stop. You breathe. You say to yourself, "All right, this is a moment for discipline, a moment for grace." You thank them for the feedback, ask for specifics, and return to your desk. You do not stew. You do not sulk. You learn. You grow. In that emotional crack, virtue takes root. The truth is, we learn far more from adversity than from comfort. Comfort rarely compels us to grow. Growth is uncomfortable, and the Stoics did not avoid discomfort. They chose it. They walked through fear so they could stand taller. They leaned into pressure so their voices could carry further. They turned friction into fuel, and pain into purpose. How do you begin? Start by dropping the story that life is against you. Then, the moment pain hits, label the drill. Is this endurance? Is this compassion? Bring your best effort, knowing you are making mental gains. Afterward, reflect. What did you learn? Where did you stretch yourself? And how will you adjust next time? As you repeat this process, your mindset shifts. Your emotional reflex transforms from panic to practice. You start to see challenges not as threats, but as your greatest teachers. Every problem is a drill. You are not being punished. You are being trained. This is not suffering. It is schooling. Your peace is not built by avoiding hardship, but by transforming it. Your character is not shaped by sunshine, but by storms. So count the blows, feel them, learn from them, and then thank them, because your true strength grows in those exact moments. Have you ever stepped into a room and felt an invisible charge in the air? Someone else's anxiety, frustration, or anger begins to tangle with your own emotions. Before you know it, you are reacting just like them. This emotional ripple effect is real. Emotions are contagious. But some people are not pulled into that storm. They remain steady, calm in the chaos. The Stoics called this empathic discipline. It is not about being cold or detached. It is about building emotional boundaries that protect your inner peace while still allowing you to care deeply for others. Imagine you are a great tree in a wild storm. You feel the wind tugging at your branches, but your roots hold firm in the ground. The Stoic approach teaches us to do the same, to witness, to care, but not to carry the emotional baggage of others. In a world of constant noise, social media rants, workplace pressures, family tensions, most of us have become emotional sponges, breathing in everyone else's stress and chaos. But as Epictetus said, it is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters. There is a powerful freedom in this truth. When someone else's anger enters your world, you have a choice. You can let it wash over you, or you can remain anchored. You can care, but you need not carry. Picture a coworker snapping at you, projecting their stress onto you. Your first instinct is to mirror them, to fight fire with fire. But what if you paused? What if you recognized, that is their fear, their insecurity, it is not mine? You don't block them out, you listen, but you respond with calm logic. You stay grounded. That is not apathy, it is wisdom. It is emotional leadership. You are not absorbing their darkness. You are holding on to your light, and that light might just help them find their own peace, because calm is contagious too. This boundary is not a fortress wall. It is a gate where empathy meets self-protection. You offer your presence, your warmth, your listening ear, but you do not invite the fire into your home. Imagine a loved one is panicking. Spiraling with them would be easy. But the Stoic approach is to take a breath, steady your voice, and become an anchor in their storm. Your steadiness helps them become steady. This is a skill we all need. When tension flares at a family gathering, you can absorb the drama, or you can stay rooted in your own virtue. You can choose to respond, not react. You can carry understanding, not anger. This is not automatic. It takes practice. It comes from anchoring yourself in something deeper, your values, your reason, your purpose. As Marcus Aurelius urged, become a rock upon which the waves of circumstance break. This does not make you aloof. It makes you a sanctuary. It makes you someone people trust, someone who can hold the space when emotions collide. This is real leadership, the quiet, resilient kind. You do not just protect yourself, you protect the situation, you protect the connection, and in doing so, you become more sensitive to the world, not less, because you are no longer caught up in the chaos. You are both present and clear, compassionate and wise. Finally, let us explore how to care without clinging. We all know that quick stab of pain when something is taken from us: a promotion, a relationship, a feeling of safety. Suddenly, our world feels unstable. We crave love, success, and respect. But the Stoics noticed a danger. When we tie our very identity to these external things, we hand over our emotional independence. It is like placing your heart in someone else's hands and praying they don't drop it. This is where the idea of preferred indifference comes in. The Stoics did not say you should reject health, wealth, or love. On the contrary, these things are preferred. They are better than their opposites. The key is to never allow them to define you. Imagine you get a raise, you celebrate it. Then it disappears. If your worth was tied to that raise, you will crash. But what if you held that raise like a feather, enjoying its presence but never letting it become part of your sense of self? When it floats away, you do not shatter. You re-anchor in what is truly yours: your courage, your clarity, your character. This is not detachment born from apathy, but resilience born from reason. We can seek good things, but know they are not essential to our core being. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, only our internal virtue matters absolutely. Everything else is a bonus. To live this way is to build a deep reservoir of peace. You love your relationships, but you do not cling. You pursue success, but your worth is not tied to it. The point is freedom. You are no longer a hostage to loss. You are rooted in your own virtue, which no one can take from you. Your dignity doesn't vanish when your status does. Your integrity doesn't flee after a failure. Consider a founder who pours her life into a startup. Then, the market tumbles and it all collapses. This would crush anyone who defined themselves as startup founder. But the Stoic founder asks, "Who am I without this? What strengths remain?" They find resilience, adaptability, wisdom. They are not starting from zero. They are building upon a self that can never go bankrupt. This mindset does not drain life of its joy. It amplifies it. It turns impermanence into gratitude, because every moment becomes both precious and fleeting. You can breathe freely, knowing you are fundamentally safe, even when circumstances shift. The Stoics knew that attachments would end. They advised preparing for this mentally so that you can live more fully while they last. This doesn't kill joy. It spares you from devastation later. It means living both in the moment and above it. So, where do you begin? Start small. Choose one thing you are attached to: your job title, your weekend plans, your physical appearance. Feel the anxiety when it is threatened. Then pause. Ask, if I lose this, do I lose myself? Remind yourself, I will still have my character. I will still have my virtue. I will still have me. That is your anchor. Practice this return to center, and it will become your default. You will learn to enjoy without depending, to invest without needing, and to risk without the fear of ruin. This is not a denial of life's gifts. It is the mastery of them. You learn to welcome it. And then, just as gracefully, you let it go. You guard the sanctuary of your inner world, even as the river of the outer world flows past. You hold your heart gently, not in a fearful clinch. This is true power. This is the art of living like the Stoics. Let's bring this into the everyday. Imagine your phone dies midday. Does it spark a total meltdown, or does it become a quiet reminder? A reminder that while technology is a convenience, it is not a necessity. Your truest connection lies within. Or if your favorite shoes finally tear, do you feel a piece of yourself has been ripped away? Or do you recognize that shoes are merely tools, not your identity? You can still walk forward. In this way, daily losses become daily lessons. You learn that you will not break, you will pivot. This mindset is contagious. When you find peace in impermanence, those around you begin to breathe a little easier. They witness loss without collapse. They see adaptation without denial. They learn to receive love without dependency, and to give it without the constant expectation of return. You become an emotional anchor, not a codependent sponge. Yes, this stability demands discipline. It isn't easy to feel loss and not crumble. It isn't easy to love without fearing that loss. But this is precisely what the Stoics trained for. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, betrayal, and war, yet he never lost his composure because he learned to hold outcomes lightly. Virtue, however, he held tightly. This is your emotional armor. Love the world, but do not tie your soul to it. Enjoy its gifts, but know they are transient. And when they go, stand steady, hold, release, maintain. That is the calm mastery and dignified poise of someone who chooses to be defined by who they are, not by what they have. So much of the pressure we feel in life stems from a single, insidious question that whispers in our ear. Did I win? We ask it after a speech, after a promotion that slips through our fingers, after a conversation that falls flat. But here lies the problem. The outcome is rarely in your hands. It depends on 1,000 variables you cannot control. Someone else's mood, a shift in the market, timing, luck. And yet, we stitch our self-worth to that final score. We define ourselves by applause, by likes, by paychecks. The Stoics played from a different playbook. They were not interested in external validation. They were dedicated to how you show up. They taught that your true identity lives in your roles, not your results. Are you showing up as a good parent, a loyal friend, a responsible leader, a dedicated partner? If you show up with clarity, courage, honesty, and consistency, regardless of the outcome, you have already won the only victory that matters. That victory is integrity. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, in a timeless piece of wisdom, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Your role is an invitation to embody that. It does not ask for perfection, but for alignment. It does not demand applause, but character. When you step into each moment as the person you intend to be, you have succeeded, whether the crowd cheers or the deal closes. Consider what this looks like. You lead a team at work. You prepare diligently, bringing effort, attention, and respect to the process. You invite feedback and navigate conflict with a calm mind. Perhaps the project doesn't land as you'd hoped. Perhaps the client walks away. Does that failure erase the care and integrity you showed along the way? No. You were victorious in your role as a leader. You acted with excellence. That is a success that builds a foundation far more enduring than any single outcome. Or imagine yourself as a parent. You model love, presence, and discipline even on the days when your patience is tested and the homework battle feels endless. The outcomes, the test scores, the teenage rebellions, can shift like the weather. But your role, that you were there, that you cared, that you acted with love day after day, that is what truly shapes character. This shift in mindset is more than noble. It is freeing. It releases you from the agony of obsessing over results. It turns your effort into a gift, not a gamble. You understand that while the scoreboard is relevant, it is not defining. You play your part with heart, with presence, and with discipline, because that is what you signed up for, not because it guarantees a reward. Think of an archer. She trains, she aims, she releases the arrow, and then she lets go. She cannot control the wind, the subtle curve of the air, the final path of the arrow. But her role did not end at the moment of release. She showed up as the archer. She honored the process. The outcome is secondary. That is Stoic success in action. This approach rewires how you handle disappointment. Instead of spiraling into a narrative of personal failure when things go wrong, you ask yourself, did I show up fully? Did I remain true to my values in this moment? If the answer is yes, you can walk away with your head held high, having laid another building block in the foundation of your integrity. And because outcomes are never permanent, you can keep going, confident that your identity is built not on fragile trophies, but on unshakable resilience. Life, however, isn't a treadmill of roles. It's a dance, and sometimes the music changes unexpectedly. When that happens, return to your center. Ask, who am I meant to be right here? What does my role now require of me? And then, show up for that role, not for a prize. You stop pretending that life owes you applause. You stop framing every moment as a question of winning or losing. Instead, you simply ask, will I show up? And when you show up with integrity, you win without ever needing a crown. What does this look like day to day? It is a series of simple habits. It is being honest when it's hard, speaking kindly when it costs you nothing, apologizing when you are wrong, keeping your commitments even when no one is watching. It is holding presence in a room, listening more than you speak, and giving credit generously. It is staying curious, not defensive. At work, you lead not for praise, but because you believe in the good you can create. In friendship, you are reliable not to collect favors, but because loyalty is part of your identity. Of course, this path has its challenges. We are wired to crave external approval, swimming in a sea of social media, instant feedback, and algorithmic validation. That noise pulls us off course. But the Stoic answer is always the same. Return to your roles. Practice them away from the headlines. Let them be your anchor. Win there. Markets crash, relationships shift, bodies age. But your roles, if you cultivate them with intention, remain. You can be a coach even when you lose the finals. You can love your child even when you disagree. You can work with dignity even when you are underpaid. You can be courageous even when things get messy. That is the kind of victory you can never lose. Stop defining yourself by the scoreboard. Step into your role today, wherever you are. Be a friend, a parent, a partner, a creator. Act with clarity. Speak with honesty. Move with courage. And let the results be what they will. You have already succeeded, simply by showing up as who you are. That success, that identity, is yours to keep, whether the world nods, claps, or remains silent. Live your roles. Let integrity be your reward. Let your life be the only applause that matters. Have you ever noticed how, in the very moment life throws you a curveball, all the wisdom you've cultivated seems to vanish? 1 second you feel grounded, and the next, a setback or a harsh word sends you spiraling back into panic. This is precisely why the Stoics didn't just study wisdom, they carried it with them. They built what could be called a Seneca cabinet, a form of mental armor composed of phrases so powerful that when chaos descended, they could reach inside and instantly stabilize their soul. Think of it as a small toolbox in your pocket, containing just a few core phrases, each one sharp enough to cut through the fog of panic, doubt, or emotional overwhelm. It is clarity meeting crisis. Here's why it works. When strong emotions rise, they flood our neural pathways, and logic goes into hiding. We become reactors, not choosers. But if you have already stored a phrase like, "You always own the option of having no opinion," it emerges in your awareness like a lifeline. Suddenly you remember that reacting is not mandatory. You have another choice. This isn't about parroting wisdom. It's about creating a cognitive habit. Marcus Aurelius himself didn't have motivational speeches on repeat. He had his meditations, his own internal phrasebook, scribbled for himself amidst the chaos of running an empire. A single line could reboot his entire mental operating system. It can reboot yours, too. Let's walk through a scenario. Your boss criticizes you in front of your colleagues. Your heart races, you feel defensive and small. But you have prepared for this. Your hand goes to your metaphorical cabinet and you pull out the phrase, "I choose my response." You take a breath. Your posture straightens. You say, "Thank you for the feedback. I'll reflect on this." You don't mirror the aggression or lash out in defense. You ride the moment with intention. To an observer, you appear calm. To yourself, you have just saved your own sanity. Or consider a personal test. Someone close betrays your trust. You feel the heat of grief and confusion. But again, you are prepared. You reach for another tool. The pain is not the enemy. My reaction to it is. And so, instead of spiraling, you begin a conversation. You set boundaries. You ask for clarity. Your response becomes the focus. You refuse to let the hurt write your story. Building your Seneca cabinet doesn't need to be complex. You can write these phrases on your phone, repeat them in the shower, or post them in places where you often feel triggered, like your computer monitor or your bathroom mirror. The key is repetition, until they fire as reflexively as a heartbeat. Think of them as mental rebars, reinforcement beams for the foundation of your mind. Here's another favorite. This too shall pass. Short, clean, Stoic certified. It reminds you that every storm dissolves. It prevents panic from lodging itself deep within you. Or consider this classic anchor from Epictetus. I cannot control the world, only myself. Use it when chaos swirls around you. Let it center you. There is profound freedom in accepting the line where your responsibility begins and ends. Your true power lives inside that boundary. And when it feels like everything is piling on, when emotional overload hits, you can stack these phrases. First, grab pause, observe, choose, then follow it with, I can meet this with dignity. You are not just tossing out lines, you are staging a mental rescue. These words warp the moment. They slow down time. They open a space for perspective to flow in. Anxiety stops echoing. Anger cools. Fear quiets. Ultimately, these phrases are not about becoming a stoic robot, devoid of feeling. They are about feeling without being consumed. They are the sword and shield against reactivity. They grant you the space to act with presence, not panic. As Epictetus said, first, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. These phrases are shortcuts to remembering who you want to be, especially when you can't think straight. Begin building your own Seneca cabinet tonight. Write down your story of the day, how you were triggered, and what phrase you needed in that moment. Practicing like this embeds the wisdom deep within you. Over time, triggers will become your cues. You will feel the emotional shift, and the right phrase will surface automatically. You will start to see a transformation, not just in how you handle the big fires, but the small, daily annoyances too. The traffic jam, the snippy comment from a family member. These become golden moments for training. You pull out your phrase, you recalibrate, you build resilience. Soon those phrases will arise organically and calm will kick in. Mental reps, like physical ones, produce retention, and that retention shapes your identity into someone who remains composed no matter what life serves them. So go ahead. Choose your armor. 3 powerful statements. Learn them. Live them. When chaos knocks, open your cabinet, deploy your tools, and stand firm. You will be an anchor when the waves hit. built not by avoiding storms, but by learning to stand while they pass. We spend our days racing through life on autopilot until an evening arrives when something inside us finally pauses. You realize the day's emotions are still buzzing within you, a restless hum in the mind. In that moment, you could scroll away the feeling before bed, or you could do what the greatest Stoics did. You could breathe and ask yourself, where did I stay calm today? Where did I lose my composure? And what could I do better tomorrow? This is the secret practice that shapes a soul. It's not what you do in public that forges you, but what you do in the quiet corners of your own mind. And it does not demand perfection. It only demands honesty. Imagine a day full of small frustrations. The email you never sent, the moment you frowned at a stranger, the tension that tightened in your chest. These moments don't simply disappear when you fall asleep. But if you sit down, perhaps with a journal, and gently review them, you begin to map your inner terrain. Was there a moment you snapped at someone? A text that ignited a flash of envy? Or perhaps you handled something well. You stayed patient in traffic or spoke up calmly in a tense meeting. You write it all down, not with judgment, but with recognition. This is how awareness begins to grow. Marcus Aurelius practiced this nightly. He ended each day by asking himself if he had been true to his principles. He didn't need applause. He needed alignment. This quiet ritual can align you with the person you are becoming, not just the person you were today. What you are doing is not self-criticism, it is self-observation. You are not saying, I am a failure for losing my temper. You are observing, I lost my temper here. Let me understand why. It's the stance of a detective, not the gavel of a judge. This is how you open the door to change, without blame, without avoidance, with only clarity and curiosity. This works because of a simple truth. We become what we notice. Your daily attention feeds certain parts of you, your patience or your anxiety, your kindness or your impatience. When you reflect, you shine a light on those parts. Over time, small shifts compound into a transformation of character. A month of this practice reveals your patterns. A year of it, and you are a different person. You are no longer someone who collapses into defeat, but someone who learns from every stumble. Let's make this practical. End your day with 3 simple questions. Where did I act with virtue? Where did I fall short? And how can I improve? Maybe you stayed calm when your child spilled juice all over the floor. You acknowledged it and moved on. That is progress. Or maybe you lashed out at the driver who cut you off. That is not a failure. It is data. You needed that data. Perhaps tomorrow, the plan is simply to pause a little longer, or to call a friend instead of sending a tense text. A small plan to build a small muscle. Do this nightly for just 5 minutes. Be honest, be kind, and stay open to your own growth and your own flaws. Over time, your mind will become quicker to catch you in the act. The muscle of self-awareness grows stronger, and with it, the power of choice in those fragile moments just before chaos hits. This is not about wallowing in mistakes. It is about meeting your own humanity with grace. You are not perfect, and you don't need to be. You just need to be willing to show up for yourself again tomorrow. Each reflection is a small reset, a quiet commitment that says, I want to be here, awake. Most transformation doesn't come from extraordinary feats. It comes from everyday awareness, from the quiet before bed, where reflection meets intention. This is where the real work is done, behind the scenes. The world may not see it, but you see yourself. And when you truly see yourself, you begin to grow yourself. Commit to this ritual. If you miss a night, it doesn't matter. You simply begin again tomorrow. You are not building perfection. You are building consistency. Slowly, you embed resilience, calm, and clarity into the fabric of your being. You become someone who lives intentionally, who learns deliberately, and who cares deeply about the state of their own mind. Your best self isn't the one who never falls. It's the one who gets back up, looks at the fall, learns, and realigns. That is your practice. Quiet, personal, powerful. That is how awareness becomes mastery, and how a life becomes a testament to quiet strength. Because the real battle isn't out there. It's in here. It's in how you respond not just to life, but to yourself. If you can meet your own reflection with honesty, and choose growth over guilt, clarity over chaos, then you are already winning the only war that matters. Peace doesn't come from perfection. It comes from presence.